The Kethvaran High Command had never lost a war. In 400 years of expansion, they had absorbed 63 civilizations. Some had fought. Most had simply looked up at the sky, counted the ships, and surrendered before a single weapon was fired. The math was always the same. The math always worked. Fleet Prime Sauron studied the holographic projection of the target world from the bridge of his flagship, the Undying Will asterisk. Blue-green, small. A single moon tidally locked. The electromagnetic chatter from its surface was loud and chaotic, billions of individual signals competing and overlapping. No unified broadcast, no coordinated defense grid, no response to the Kethvaran standard demand of capitulation. Just noise. "They are not responding to our hail," said his second Veketh, a young officer with sharp gray eyes and no battle experience worth mentioning. "Perhaps they do not understand the frequency." "They understand," Sauron said. "Their technology is sufficient to receive us. They are simply choosing not to answer." Veketh tilted his head. "Pride." "Arrogance," Sauron corrected. "There is a difference. Pride acknowledges the gap and refuses to bend. Arrogance does not believe the gap exists." He clasped his hands behind his back. "It makes no matter. 9,900 vessels, Veketh. This world has a single moon and no orbital weapons platform of consequence. We will remind them of the math." The invasion fleet descended. Sergeant First Class Dana Reyes had been awake for 31 hours when the sky turned dark. She was stationed at Firebase Kilo 7 in the high desert, a hardened installation designed originally for atmospheric monitoring. Now it was a joint coordination node for the Unified Ground Response, a title that had been invented 4 days ago when the UN Security Council convened an emergency session and used the words "confirmed extraterrestrial hostile approach" in an official document for the first time in human history. She stood on the roof of the operations center with a tin mug of cold coffee and watched 9,900 alien ships blot out the sun over 3 separate continents simultaneously. "Well," she said to no one in particular, "that's a lot." "Sergeant." The voice behind her was Colonel Yuntesiok, her commanding officer, a compact man with silver at his temples and the permanent expression of someone doing arithmetic in his head. He didn't look at the sky. He was looking at his tablet. "Reyes, I need you to confirm the relay uplinks to sectors 4 through 11 are green." "Sir, there are about 10,000 alien ships." "I'm aware." He finally glanced up, studied the blackened horizon for exactly 2 seconds, then returned to his tablet. "Uplinks, Sergeant." She went inside. That was the thing about Yun that had always unsettled her. And also, she now realized, the thing about him that might actually save her life. He was not impressed by things that hadn't killed him yet. Fleet Prime Sauron watched the first wave of landing craft touch atmosphere. He had expected ground-based missile fire. There was some crude chemical propellant systems, adequate against second-tier opponents, entirely insufficient against Kethvaran hull plating. The missiles detonated against the forward screens and left smear marks. His ships noted the contacts, logged them, and continued descending. What he did not expect was for 17 of his landing craft to simply cease to function in midair over a mountainous region, designated as Asterisk Zone Western Approach 4 Asterisk. No explosion, no energy discharge detected. They lost power, pitched nose down, and fell. "Report," he said quietly. His tactical officer, Brenka, was already working. "Unknown. Power systems failed across all 17 simultaneously. No weapon signature in any known Kethvaran threat catalog. The craft they were simply turned off." "Turned off?" "Yes, Fleet Prime." Sauron considered this for 11 seconds. "Continue the descent. Other zones report nominal." "Yes, all other zones nominal." "Then we have encountered a localized anomaly. Proceed." This was the math. 17 craft out of 9,900 was a rounding error. You didn't stop an invasion for rounding errors. He would revisit this in the after-action report. The thing about Reyes that Colonel Yun had identified early in her career and quietly cultivated was her ability to stay task-oriented when the context was absurd. Most soldiers could function in danger. Danger was concrete. Danger had a direction. Absurdity was harder. Absurdity was when the frame of the world shifted and you had to keep doing your job inside a context that no longer made sense by any prior standard. Reyes was good at that. She had grown up in a household that required it. She confirmed the uplinks, all green. She filed the confirmation. She got back to her post. Outside, the alien landing craft were setting down across the valley floor, hundreds of them, vast dark shapes lowering on columns of displaced air. She watched them through the blast glass window with the same expression she used when watching weather roll in. Yun appeared at her shoulder. Relay is holding. Holding, she confirmed. Good, he watched the craft land. They're clustering around population centers. Textbook occupation pattern. They want infrastructure intact. So they're not just here to kill us. No, they want the planet. He said it plainly. Not as catastrophe, as information. That's good for us, actually. Means they need to be selective. Means we have room. Room to do what, sir? He almost smiled. Everything they haven't accounted for. It was on the fourth day that Fleet Prime Sarun began to understand that the math had been wrong. Not the math of ships and weapons, that math held. His ground forces outnumbered human military assets by a factor that should have been decisive 100 times over. The problem was a different kind of math. The problem was that the humans did not behave like a military. Kethvaran doctrine was built around a simple principle: destroy the command structure and the force collapses. The soldiers become individuals. Individuals surrender or flee. The humans had no coherent command structure to destroy. What they had instead was something Brenka, going through intercepted communications, translated haltingly as asterisk, everyone deciding to be a problem at the same time. Humans with agricultural equipment were disabling landing struts on parked craft. Children were mapping patrol routes and passing information through communication systems. The Kethvaran had not thought to jam because they had not recognized them as communication systems. An elderly human male in a coastal city had convinced 17 Kethvaran soldiers that they were walking into a secured facility, when in fact they were walking into a recycling processing plant that he had primed to vent superheated gas. He died too, but he'd known he was going to. They're not coordinating through channels, Brenka said, baffled. They're coordinating through cultural transmission, shared assumptions. They don't need to be told what to do. They already know what they're supposed to do. Sarun stared at the casualty projections. The numbers were moving in the wrong direction. What is the status of the Undying Will's return trajectory? Vekath looked up sharply. Fleet Prime. I asked the question second. 17 days to safe jump point, sir. But the fleet we cannot simply. I am not asking about the fleet, Sarun said. I am asking about this ship. The bridge was very quiet. 17 days, Vekath repeated softly. Sarun nodded. He pulled up the casualty projections one more time, studied them, closed the display. Send recall orders, he said. All forces, we are withdrawing. Fleet Prime, the High Command will. The High Command sent 9,900 ships to this world based on a mathematical model. He turned to face Vekath fully. The model was wrong. We did not account for the variable. He paused. We assumed that a species which had not yet unified was weak. We did not consider that a species which had not yet unified had also not yet learned how to stop fighting. No one spoke. Send the recall. Sergeant First Class Dana Reyes was on the roof again when they left. The sky brightened slowly, great dark shapes lifting and ascending until the stars came back one by one. She stood there with a fresh mug of coffee, hot this time, and watched them go. Colonel Yun came to stand beside her. He looked up, said nothing for a long time. "How many came back?" she asked. He checked his tablet. 17 confirmed departures from this hemisphere. Other hemisphere reports are still coming in. Total estimate, he paused. 17. Reyes looked at him. "Out of 9,900, he said. She turned back to the sky, drank her coffee. "Well," she said finally. Yun waited. "Good." That was all she said. That was enough. The stars were out. The math had changed. And somewhere in the dark between worlds, 17 ships were carrying home a lesson that 400 years of conquest had never managed to teach. Some variables cannot be modeled. Some species cannot be solved. Tilde 1, 600 words.